That's Not Canon Productions podcast.
Hi there, and welcome to another midweek guest episode of Oof, Right in the Childhood. Today, I'm joined by Tim Hall of Therapy for Monsters. Tim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jen.
Hey, Tim, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
So, I am a fellow podcaster. I do a podcast called Therapy for Monsters because I am actually a therapist in real life. I've been doing that for quite a few years now, like over a decade, I think. I'm getting old. But yeah, so it's just a fun little podcast where the clients are kind of improvised monsters seeking support. So you've got things like, Gollum, who's obsessed with the ring and wanting a little bit of therapeutic help, or I don't know, Bowser talking about Mario always bothering him. So yeah, lots of interesting little things.
Yeah, I recently listened to your episode with the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and I really liked how you're like, no, this is not how you show love for someone. No.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny that he's like obsessed about his looks, and how she can't possibly love me because of the way I look. And it's like, dude, you've got her trapped. You're like, she's your prisoner. I think that's a bigger issue here than, yeah, the fact that you've got a little bit of hair on your face.
Right, I can barely wait to do the whole episode on Stockholm Syndrome that's coming sometime next year. It'll be great.
There's so much material, like especially the earlier Disney movies before they became more PC. Yeah, there's lots of interesting characters.
For example, this week we're talking about Cinderella and, all of that comes along with it. So Tim, does Cinderella need therapy, or who do you think needs therapy in this movie?
You got to feel for Cinderella, like she's got the bad end of things, doesn't she? So her parents have died, and then she's stuck with this horrible stepmother and horrible stepsisters. Yeah, she doesn't have it very easy, does she?
She does not. It is, quite the thing, and you know what? I actually wouldn't even blame her if she needed just a smattering of therapy after all that she's gone through. Uh,
Oh, definitely.
it's definitely a thing.
Like imagine the mental health, like her should be dealing with grief and loss while dealing with pretty much abuse and being held captive and yeah, treated like she's worthless. So I think there'd be a couple of issues going on in her mind. Like it'd be a tough one.
Funny, when I watched this with my daughter, who is 17, she kept saying, "Are the animals hallucinations?" And the more she asked it, the more I went, "You know, that's a really good coping mechanism there, Cindy. That'd be okay."
Yeah, so she's kind of she's kind of hallucinating some supportive relationships in her life, which yeah, you couldn't blame her. She needs something. I don't know. I thought the animals kind of reminded me a little bit. Actually, the whole scenario reminded me a little bit of Harry Potter. So his parents have passed away. He is able to speak to animals, so he can speak to snakes and stuff like that. And is getting bullied by his new step family. So yeah, there's a little bit of Harry Potter in Cinderella, I think.
It's a really good point. I had never really thought about, transitioning the abuse of Cinderella to the abuse of Harry Potter, but an excellent point.
Yeah, except instead of going to Hogwarts, she just gets a nice magical carriage ride to a ball. I think I'd probably prefer the trip to Hogwarts.
I gotta say, like, I mean, the way that Disney solved all problems was, and then they got married. The end.
What I thought was amazing was how the whole plot was based on, and look, it's a nice story and everything. So like it's a better movie than I could have made. But at the same time, the whole plot is based on this idea that he really wants, the prince wants true love and doesn't want to just be set up by his father because the father just wants grandkids. So the prince wants true love, and yet I don't know. Did they actually talk to each other in the movie? Did Cinderella and the prince actually talk?
They never said a word. I think the only words that they ever said was she was like, "Oh, I didn't even meet the prince. I must go." And he was like, "But wait, your shoe." That's all of their dialogue right there. And then they got married.
Yeah.
The end.
So you've got to you've got to wonder about the depth of their love, considering there was just no like you didn't get to know the prince's personality at all, and he didn't get to know hers. Beside the fact that, oh yeah, you're pretty, and she's like, oh yeah, you're a rich prince, and you're not an abusive stepmother. So yeah, I'll come to your place. But yeah.
Seemed like an excellent alternative to what my life is right now. Let's do that.
Pretty much anything compared to what she was currently saddled with in her life would have been better. So you can't really blame her for jumping ship pretty easily.
Oh, absolutely not. Something that I did notice as I was watching it, and I'd never really watched it, like, and thinking about it, as how often they're like, the prince absolutely does not want to get married, and
Hmm.
like they didn't even say he wants to fall in love. They're like he is not interested in getting married, and then like the archduke is like, if the prince should suspect that we have set him up with a woman, I was like, I need some more information about what's going on with Prince Charming here because
Yeah.
he just doesn't want to meet a girl at all.
Yeah. So what's his deal? I thought they did mention him wanting love, but maybe I'm just conjuring that up because there has to be some reason he doesn't want just any woman. Yeah, they don't really delve into his character very much.
He is absolutely the most cardboard cutout of a prince ever. Just like he is nothing. I maybe the sequels go into it. I don't know. I've never actually watched the sequels, but
Oh.
yeah, I kept kind of like the archduke kept saying to the king, "You're such a romantic, sire," and he's like, "Yeah, just smush a boy and a girl together, and they'll fall in love. You're such a romantic." And I'm like, "We need to have a talk about
Yeah.
what your romantic
Well,
is."
and I think what this was in the 50s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 51.
Yeah, I think the importance of a woman actually liking the man that she's been introduced to, I think that wasn't so important back then. Um, there was a few issues there, I think, in terms of the way women were treated and yeah, and portrayed.
And I mean, especially because it's being set in, probably, I think, 1400s France, because that's
Mm,
when the Perrault story was written. But, like, I mean, in the 1950s, it was just the beginning of that whole, "Hey, maybe you should actually like the guy that you married a
yeah.
little bit." I mean, you don't have to really like him, just a little.
It's this idea that women's opinions actually matter. This is just revolutionary. But that's the way things kind of were.
I kept laughing throughout the whole ball scene with them being like, "He might suspect that we want him to fall in love." I'm like, "You literally threw a ball and invited only women. I think he's gonna figure it out."
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. So yeah, there was literally no other men there, so he didn't have anyone to compete with, did he? And yeah, just here's a big room, fill them with women, and yeah, hopefully something sticks.
I think the stepsisters also might have some delusions going on about their own everything.
Yeah, they seem to think they're pretty amazing, and yeah, I don't know. It's almost that bullying mentality, isn't it? Where they just blame everything that's wrong with them on Cinderella, and then never actually recognize that they're terrible, horrible human beings. Um, so yeah, there's no realization there, is there?
There isn't, and, during the scene where they're getting ready for the ball, they're like, "Why can't we have new clothes?" I was like, "'Cause you squandered the family fortune in, like, 2 years. That seems like that's on
What did they
you."
spend all that money on? Oh, just
I have no idea.
Oh, I'm thinking Beauty and the Beast, where the prince spends all the taxes on like lavish lifestyle and everything. And they did have a pretty lavish house, but I don't know.
But they had that lavish house at the beginning.
Yeah. So where'd all the money go? Why'd they have to
Maybe it
rely
was
on
building the tower for Cinderella to live on in. I don't know.
Why did they have to rely on Cinderella to be a servant? If with all that money, surely they could have hired more help. But I don't know. Maybe it was by choice. They really had it in for Cinderella and wanted her to do everything.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Cinderella. What got me a little bit. So Cinderella was basically an unpaid servant to the step family. Um, and you think, okay, that's pretty horrible. But then all of her animal friends were pretty much like unpaid servants to her, like making her dress and, running after her and taking care of her. So it was kind of like the more you go down the line here, you really got to kind of feel for the animals, don't you?
The mice she didn't ask the mice to make the dress, they made the dress based on her blueprints. Like,
Yeah.
they actually were like, "We can do this, we're going to do this for her," rather than, "Hey, mice, I've gotta go clean up after my stepsisters, make me a dress, 'kay, bye."
Yeah, so I guess it was more voluntary, except it wasn't voluntary when the mice were made into the horses. I think the mice weren't too impressed
Valid.
by that.
That was something.
What did you make of the fairy godmother?
So I actually, for the first time, noticed that she spoke in heroic couplets this time, and I was laughing the whole time. But she completely missed the point of what Cinderella was upset about. And that was the funny part of that scene is like she's like, "Oh, you need a carriage and a footman and horses and this and this and this." And then she's like, "Okay, go have fun." And
Mm.
Cindy's like, I I'm literally wearing rags. I could not be more worse dressed than
Yeah.
this." So I thought that was kind of funny that she just completely missed the point of the problem. But my favorite thing about it was that she wasn't like, "Go meet a prince and, get married and have babies." She was like, "I'd like you to have a good night. Fun. But be back by midnight. Bye."
Yeah.
She didn't even tell her like you have to go meet a prince. Just go have some fun.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't too much depth there either, was there? At least she had a nice song, so that was pleasant. But yeah, you I don't know, you do wonder what the fairy godmother's motive was.
So I actually took the time to read the original fairy tale because it's only like 100 words long, and it's just like Cinderella's godmother who happened to be a fairy. So it wasn't like she already had a godmother who was a fairy.
Yeah.
And I kept noticing, like, she said something along the lines of, "If you didn't believe, then I wouldn't be here." And I was like, "Huh? What?"
There's a lot of head scratching with it. I think, yeah, it's one of those things where they've obviously thought so far and then no further in terms of like what the depth is behind the characters, and say there's a little bit of inconsistency. Um, but again, still better than a movie that I could have done. And I think the whole
Well, absolutely.
yeah, it was a nice
I mean, not
story.
I'm not saying that absolutely it's better than, but it's a nice story, and the more I kinda dug into it, the more I kinda saw that the fairy godmother was a transition from, like, in ancient Greece, it was an eagle, which was a messenger of the gods. In ancient China,
Okay.
it was a fish that was a god, and so, like, they were like, "How do we do this, but we believe in one god, and we can't have multiple gods?" So it's a fairy godmother that
Uh
does the magic this time, I
Okay.
think.
A little bit more, palatable to the audience to just make it a nice, pretty happy fairy godmother than rather than getting into too much trouble with other things.
Yeah, I guess this was before, you got burned for witchcraft or something, I don't.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So you've got, the thing that gets me as well is the limitations with the fairy godmother's magic. So it was only able to last until midnight. And then the carriage went back to normal, the horses went back to normal, the dress went back to normal. So why didn't the glass shoes go back to normal?
Okay, so I asked the same question, and do you want the answer?
Yeah.
Okay, so after again reading the original, in the original, she doesn't create the glass shoes, she gives her glass shoes. So it's like
Oh,
something that the fairy
okay.
godmother already had and handed her instead of turning her shoes into glass slippers. So
Okay.
they didn't have anything to return to, they already existed. Now in the movie, that's not true, but that's in the original fairy tale.
Well, that
And
makes
in
sense.
the new remake, they actually show her step out of her old shoes, and then she makes the glass slippers from nothing,
Mm,
which my argument is then they have nothing to return to. But in the original, she just gives her glass slippers. I want to take a moment to thank my supporters on Patreon. Jason and Mixie have both joined in at the $5 level so they can hear ad-free versions of every episode one day early and listen to my discussion of the propaganda that Disney created during World War II. Supporters on Patreon help me cover hosting fees and upgrade my equipment while being able to choose to promote small businesses. If you'd like to become a patron, you can search the show over at Patreon, or you can follow the link in the show notes or on my website.
Are you a grown-up who loves Disney?
Are you a grown-up who wants all the facts?
Are you a grown-up who spends copious hours arguing with friends and family about the deep intellectual properties of your favourite Disney movie?
Do you want to delve deeper into the realms of Disney with us?
I'm Stacey.
And I'm Georgina.
And together, we're Disney Grown Up. We are the place to get all of the intellectual debate on your favourite Disney movie.
Get all of those fun facts.
And a whole heap of raw reactions to all of those interesting Disney movie moments. You can find us where any good podcast is found, or on our website, that's notcanonproductions.com.
Join us for Disney Grown Up.
You know you want to.
That's Not Canon Productions podcast.
Yeah, okay. I think the original makes more sense with that. So, okay, so in the original, was the original quite violent? Because I thought that I remember hearing randomly about some violent aspects to it. Am I remembering correctly?
You're not wrong.
Okay.
You're not wrong, but you're not right. So the original that this is based on is by Charles Perrault, who was French. And then the Grimm brothers wrote a version of it about 100 years later, and that's where you get the gory bits of like the stepsisters cutting their feet,
Yeah.
trying to fit into the glass slipper,
Yep.
and things like that. So this was actually based on the original modern retelling of it rather than basing it on like the Greek myth or the Chinese myth, but Charles Perrault was the first one to write it down in 14th century or 15th century France.
Okay, all right, so this is making sense then. And so Disney's come along, they've was the original as one-dimensional as the Disney portrayal in terms of we're going to solve every problem you have with a man?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was written in 15th century. The thing that I really thought was interesting, they pointed out in the original that I really wish Disney had gone into, and I kind of make fun of it. So the beginning songs like Cinderella, You're as Beautiful as Your Name. Cinderella is not her name.
Okay.
She doesn't have a name. So her stepsisters, one called her Cinder Winch, and the nicer one called her Cinderella because she slept in the cinders of the fireplace.
Wow, boy.
So she doesn't have a name.
You got to feel for this poor Cinderella. Like, yeah, you'd definitely be calling child protection for her growing up, wouldn't you? She didn't get the nicest of treatment.
She needed a required reporter. Like,
Yeah.
someone needed to be like, so I don't know what happened, but this dude died, and his wife, his widow, is the worst.
So why does the stepmother have it so in for Cinderella?
Because she's beautiful and her daughters aren't. So, like, it's like a
Okay.
jealousy thing of like, and her father, like according to the story, her father loved Cinderella, and like she took up this special place in her heart. And I think that there's probably something there about the stepmother being a little jealous of Cinderella getting some extra attention from her husband, the worst.
Mm,
And
yeah.
also that he didn't have that same relationship with the stepdaughters, perhaps. And so when he died, then she just kind of was like, "Well, I'm gonna shower my kids with like as much money and jewels as I possibly can, and then she can rot in the cinders," kind of thing.
Wow. So what? So she's because anytime you see abuse, you've got to go. Okay, well, where's the victim thoughts for the person to justify the abuse? So with the stepmother, it seems like they're going, oh, I'm the victim of my husband paying more attention to his daughter than me. Um, and then my kids are the victim of not turning out as beautiful as Cinderella, um, and not as likable. So I'm going to then, yeah, use that victimhood to justify my abuse of Cinderella. She's got it coming because, it was unfair what I went through and what my kids have gone through. So we'll make Cinderella suffer.
Well, yeah, and it's definitely I've got to say, I mean, I don't know how the dad treated the stepdaughters, but I'm going to kind of give it a little bit of an assumption because it talks about how close she was with her father. And, there is always that kind of issue when you've got that the conjoined families, the married families, that sometimes not everything feels as equal as it should
Mm.
be in like the hypothetical.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, that's a very real thing where yeah, those family dynamics with blended families can be difficult, but very unusual to make somebody, yeah, a prisoner and to force them to be your servant. Not many people go to that extreme.
Mean, it is a little bit much. I'm not at all like saying, "Oh yeah, I think that." Oh gosh, what's her name? It's like Lady something. I've forgotten what her name is. But
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying she was right. I'm just saying
I'm
maybe
not saying
this is
that
the
either.
reason.
Just trying to understand where are they coming from? And yeah, what got me as well was just how far, like how horrible she really was to kind of set up Cinderella's hopes for the ball by saying initially, yeah, 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 you can go, and then putting that little condition on that, as long as you've got all the work done, and then going and just adding more and more and more work for her to do. And then to have the bloomin' daughters rip her dress apart. Um, yeah, it was pretty extreme.
Actually said I think that to the point of this movie, I mean, like there weren't a whole bunch of movies up to this point. She is the absolute, I will say, second most evil character because I think the hunter that killed Bambi's mother was like a poacher. But like at
Right.
least the evil queen in Snow White was like, I'm just going to kill her.
Yeah. Not just
None of
torture
this.
her.
Yeah, none of this. I'll trap her in a tower and torture her,
Mm.
and then and pretend like she doesn't exist and get her hopes up and then smash them. I mean, like that's sadistic,
And I think the fact that, like, we can't really pinpoint what the motivation was for the stepmother to actually do this kind of even speaks to even more just how evil she was, that she didn't really even need much of a reason to treat this person so horribly.
right? I think the whole motivation was money. Like if you look at it,
Mm,
because she wants her girls to marry this prince, and that is one of the most hilarious points in the movie where she's like, "You and you, who look absolutely nothing like this girl he danced with, I bet you can fit into that
yeah,
shoe," and trick him into believing you're that girl that he danced with. That seems
yeah.
fine.
Does this also speak to what we were talking about before about just how shallow the prince and Cinderella's relationship was? The fact that he
Possibly.
can't even recognize who this girl is, and the only connection he can like make with her is like, oh yeah, she had this shoe, so. Or is that more of the father's kind of doing, where the father's like, oh, any girl will do as long as she fits in the shoe?
I really don't know. I think it might be a combination of the two. I think the prince, like, if given what we know about the prince from the ball, maybe the prince was just like, well, I met her and she ran away, and well, that sucks. I'll just go on with my life. And the king was like, no, absolutely, we have to have an heir. But I kept thinking, I was like, why didn't you have like a contingency plan for what if the shoe fits more than one girl, or what if it
Mm,
fits someone and she actually is married and just kind of sneaked out to the ball
yeah.
and danced with the prince anyway, and then she comes down the stairs and is like, oh, I had the other one in my pocket, and they're like, oh, well, we must try it on your foot to see if you're the right one. I'm like, she had it in her pocket, what do you want?
Yeah, she really had to prove herself, didn't she? And just how evil the stepmother was at that point, where she's trying to lock Cinderella away, and so she can't try on the shoe. And then after Cinderella finally gets out again, smashes the shoe. Like, wow, that was even to the last moment, she's there trying to sabotage Cinderella.
Yeah, she's something. I don't know what that
Yeah.
something is, but she's something.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, yeah, so I think Disney did a pretty good job of, yeah, making a pretty monstrous character.
And so I haven't watched the other two, but I do understand that I think the third one, that the stepmother gets a hold of the wand, and or of the fairy godmother's wand, and turns time back and makes it so that Cinderella never marries the prince. And in doing so, ruins both of her daughters' lives because they ended up meeting the people who loved them after Cinderella married the prince.
Wow. So she did that to spite Cinderella, even though it cost her daughters their own happiness.
I don't think she realized that that would be the outcome, or something like that. It's like, I have to watch them, but that's what I understand from the others, 'cause, I've heard, like, the looseness of the concept of the story. By the time the
Mm,
direct to video, sequel rage hit, I was kind of out of the Disney, like, buying movies age, so I haven't
yeah.
watched them yet, so I'm holding on to that, but that's what I understand from it, is that she turns back time to try to get her daughters to marry the prince, and in doing so, ruins her daughters' lives.
Yeah. Yeah, like, you almost at the end of the movie, the first one, kind of feel like the stepmother didn't get her comeuppance, did she? Like, she really yeah, she didn't get much of a or any punishment or any, like, seem there was no really I don't know,
No,
you
she
kind of
didn't,
felt
and yeah, I kinda mentioned that, like, she disobeyed 3 royal decrees, like,
yeah.
that it said, "Every eligible maiden," and she's like, "Oh, except for that one," and then they're like,
Mhm.
"Every eligible maiden must try on this shoe," and she's like, "I'm gonna lock her in the room the
Yeah.
tower," and then she comes down the stairs, she's like, "Oh, no, she's nothing, she's no one, she's not, nuh-uh," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"3 times. You did it thrice." That
You
you
kinda wanted
disobeyed a
to
royal
see her
decree, that's enough to end up in a guillotine.
Yeah, you kinda, like, throw her in the cell at least at the end of the movie or, at least Jafar in, Aladdin got thrown into a lamp to for all eternity at the end, so you're like, "Oh, yeah, he got what was coming," but, no, you're left kind of feeling like they never ever ended up getting what was coming. Disney always does a good job of the first movies, and then, the sequels, it's usually a pretty steep drop off.
Well, I mean, there was 50 years, 40 years between this one and its sequel, I think, so I think the sequel started getting
Wow.
released in the '90s, so, yeah, there was a bit of a separation there.
Can you think of any Disney movie that has whose sequel is better than their original?
Well, I think that, the Toy Story movies, I would give them all pretty equal grounding.
Oh,
Um,
that's
I
true. I
wouldn't
didn't even think of because that's Disney Pixar, isn't it?
Right, they are Disney Pixar. I'm trying to think of movies that have had sequels that I've actually watched, which is a difficult thing in and of itself. Because like, and all of the ones I can think of that have sequels are Pixar that I've actually, like, sit down and watched so far, so
Pixar Pixar seems to yeah, their sequels are quite good, aren't they? So you've got what are some classic sequels and Pixar, obviously Toy Story,
Uh,
and now I'm not going to be able to think of any others because I'm trying to
we
think.
had Monsters Inc. and Monsters University, which was the sequel, which was
Oh, Monsters University was nowhere near as
it
good
was
as the
nowhere
first
near
one,
as good,
though.
but it was
No.
good. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
awful. I've seen way worse sequels.
That's true.
I didn't think that Finding Dory was better than Finding Nemo, but I thought it was good.
I haven't seen Finding Dory yet. I've seen Finding Nemo, but yeah, I've really got to watch Finding Dory.
You know what I love to do? I love to like watch Toy Story the original and then watch like a video game preview and compare the two and go, look how far we've come. Just that's like from like what 92 or something or 95 and
Yeah.
like watching like it's only been 20 years and this is how fast our computer generation has come. But
Well,
I'm
with
trying to think of it.
graphics. But yeah, graphics have come a long, long way, haven't they?
They sure have, and everything is graphics now.
Yeah, you even got virtual reality and all of that, which is pretty crazy. Have you ever tried that?
I have not, but I really want to. I think it'd be really, really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So, it really fills your mind. I've tried to put a controller down on a table in the game before, and then just like dropped it in real life. So,
I don't have enough
yeah.
coordination in real life. I'm worried about virtual reality.
Yeah, it messes with your mind. It's interesting. Wonder if they'll ever do any virtual reality Disney movies. That would be something.
A fair bit off, but like if you've ever read the Ready Player One books, they talk about doing virtual reality movies and they seem really interesting. Like you're acting out a
Yeah.
part in the movie kind of thing. And I
All
mean,
right.
sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I have seen a little animated virtual reality movie where it's basically forget the name of it. It might have been The Prince and I or something like that. But it's basically like this little world, and the little character comes out of his house, and you see this little round globe world in front of you, and you can move your head around and see from different angles, and while the movie's kind of playing out. But yeah, it'd be amazing what Disney could do with something like that.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to see what it goes. And they just announced that they're pretty much moving all their focus to streaming and home for the foreseeable future due to all that has happened. So maybe we'll see virtual
Yeah.
reality movies come out of that and um move forward from that.
Yeah, it'd be something. But yeah,
Maybe that will be the good thing that comes out of 2020.
but if Cinderella happened today, it would have been a much simpler process with tracking her down, because as soon as she arrives at the ball, she would have had to put down all of her identifying details so that they can do the contact tracing if there's any if there's any spread within the venue, and so the prince could have
Oh, no.
easily just gone, okay, let's just see the list of guests here, and yep, this is this is where Cinderella is, and be done with it.
I was just thinking about her phone pinging, like, oh, well, these phones pinged, and we're just gonna scroll through their Instagrams, and that's the girl,
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. Oh man, how many movies plots would have been ruined with the inclusion of mobile phones? It's just yeah, just there's no suspense, is there?
No, it's just like selfie. Moving on.
Trying to track Cinderella down and just looks where the who's tagged in the photos on Facebook, and that's all that's required.
Use that automatic face tagger thing that Facebook does. It's super creepy, and it's like, is this Jane? And you're like,
Oh
yes,
really?
don't know that. Oh, you've never had that happen when you upload a picture and it's like, hey, is this your friend Jane? And it's like,
So
yeah.
creepy.
Could you not know that?
Oh no. Wow, so that's how far Facebook's come. That's scary, isn't it?
Uh-huh. I'm not a fan, but oh well. So Tim, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Lots of fun, lots of interesting characters. So thank you for having me on.
Well, it is my pleasure. And why don't you take a moment and tell all of our listeners exactly where they can find you, and so they can go and listen to your podcast as well.
Oh, if you just search for Therapy for Monsters on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere, that's me. And you can also find both of our podcasts on the That's Not Canon network on their webpage.
Sure can. Guest episodes, when available, will drop into your feed on Thursdays after the main episode about that movie is scheduled. Make sure you don't miss a single guest episode by hitting the subscribe button on wherever you're getting your podcasts right now. You can also get updates by following me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under the username OofMyChildhood. A transcript of this episode will be available on my website, and if you check my YouTube channel, you'll find captioned videos. I do my best to provide a transcript and video as soon as this episode is published, but if this one isn't available yet, check my website for updates and a link to the appropriate video. My theme music was composed and played by Sean Rudolph of Let Music Be. For more information on that studio, you can visit their website at letmusic.be or visit my website for an easy link. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you come back each week to discuss Disney through modern eyes. And while you're at it, if you're enjoying yourself, please let your friends know about me. I'd also appreciate a rating and review wherever you're listening to the show. This podcast was recorded with the help of the Craig chatbot and edited by me. I release a new regular episode every Monday through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many, many other podcatchers. So until next time, keep the magic alive.